Hello everybody, Xander here, and today we are back with another book review, a light one, but still a book review. This is the second one for May. Batman Knightfall by Dennis O'Neil. A little ironic with the shirt I'm wearing. And this is a book adaptation of the comic book of the same name. In case you guys are confused as to why this is really thin and has a half-price book tag on it. That's because, this is a sort of, bookification of the Knightfall comic by one of the writers of said comic story arc, Dennis O'Neil, who had been a Batman writer for quite a while around that point too. And I did a little bit of research on this book. I didn't just read the book and just leave it at that. I did do a slight bit of research. I looked it up on Wikipedia. Thankfully, it does have a page. And apparently, this book was made not too long after the comic arc had ended, even though the copyright page for this version I have, it says 2004. And then the Wikipedia page also said that around 1994 there was a hardcover version that they made, and then it said later there was a paperback version released. So I'm guessing 2004 was when they kind of did that, which is really late, but it does kind of make sense in that sense. Or it's both a, the later paperback, but also maybe a later printing. I'm not sure. Either way, this is quite a gem, and like I said, there's a half-price books tag on it because I found it there, and it was quite the find, because I had never seen anything like this before. Not really, because it's not like most novelizations of non-book stuff, like movies or TV shows, or video games. This was basically a novelization of a comic book written by the guy who helped write said comic book. So I thought that was really cool, and I just had to read this. The other cool thing is that this book compiles the entire Knightfall story arc, and not just a part of it, into one book, which is kind of crazy because, if you've seen the full books for Knightfall, the comic, there's not only 3 of them, but they're huge. But to be fair, they're comic books, so it's a bunch of big pictures almost together in one page, essentially. So makes sense. Also, the text is kind of small, which would usually be a problem for me, but not only is this a unique book, so it's not like I'm gonna find this anywhere else really, but also it wasn't too bad to read with the small text for some reason, even though literally any other instance of me reading a small print book drains my head almost. But enough talking about where I got this book, why it's so cool and all that. Let's talk about the book. So if you guys don't know the Knightfall storyline, it is very famous for the one big image related to it, and that is the villain of the story, Bane, a muscle-bound South American man who breaks Batman's back breaks it over his knee, which is not much of a spoiler, because again, it's the most iconic thing about the comic and the most iconic thing in Batman history. That and, the plot summary on the back of this book basically, reveals that as well. So, there you go. There you go. So, yeah. After, Batman gets his back broken, he is practically paralyzed, just not, permanently like some of his other, allies might be in the future. In the meantime, Bruce Wayne, who is Batman, just in case you didn't know that, enlists the help of a young man who he had met before the events of this book, Jean-Paul Valley, to be his successor because of how, skilled he is, having been an agent of a secret order called Saint Dumas. And for the meantime, he is the new Batman, but sometimes there are drawbacks with having someone take over your business and not fully knowing them as a person. I don't know. Then there's like a bunch of other stuff in between before Batman gets his back broken and in the middle of all of that and later. There's a lot to talk about. But that's stuff you should find out if you decide to go, I don't know, read the comic, because I don't know if you're gonna find this. I don't know how rare this book is, actually. That's probably the research I should have also done, how rare this is. But I assume it shouldn't be too horribly rare, seeing how, it got reprinted in 2004, but that's 20 years now, so it's a lot. But yeah, yeah. Regardless, what about the writing, the quality of everything? So that's also an interesting thing, because now that this has been adapted into a novel, you kind of have to judge it based on the actual writing, the quality of the writing, not just, the art and the concept itself, the story concept itself, but also the just quality of writing. And I think it's pretty good. It's a mostly simple writing style. It doesn't try too hard with flowery prose. It just kind of gets straight to the point. It's almost like a spy thriller book in a way, the way it's written, even though it's like about one of the most popular superheroes ever. But kind of like that. There's secret identity stuff. There's going around the world a little bit, and the bad guys. So kind of like I said, this is written by Dennis O'Neil, the guy who helped write this comic story arc, and he does a good job at adding detail to what was already written, because it's mentioned in the afterword of this book, but also just kind of inferred from the idea that this is an adaptation of a comic. Because if you've never read a comic script, I'll tell you that it's basically like a little bit like a movie script to a degree. That being, it's not massively detailed. It's going more for this thing happens, some little details here and there if they're really needed or specific, and then the dialogue. That's mostly it. So obviously it was a task for Dennis O'Neil to fill in the blanks when writing this, and I think he did a good enough job. And it was also cool reading the afterword a bit, and hearing the full task that he was given with writing this, and just kind of the whole story behind it. Because not only was Knightfall turned into a radio drama in the UK before this book, but the publishing company wanted like two versions of a book adaptation of Knightfall. They wanted one for kids and wanted one more for adults, and this is obviously that, because there were a lot of like curse words, lots of I'm sure the comic, I haven't like fully read it really, so I don't know if they're like how they tackle the usage of ladies of the night, so I don't know how they refer to them, but this book is like a little more hard-hitting, like it's not afraid to say some stuff. Basically it's like a more adult sort of Batman story in a sense. If Batman getting his spine perforated wasn't enough, but hey, the kids can handle that, I guess. I found that cool. There's also the afterword or introduction by Dennis O'Neil. Yeah, I think it's Dennis O'Neil and Greg Rucka. Kind of breeze through it a little bit. I guess Greg Rucka, does the one part of the afterword, and this was what caught my eye when I was kind of going through the first handful of pages before the actual book, and I kind of found it cool and interesting that this guy actually has this opinion of Batman. I'm pretty sure he helped write Knightfall as well, and helped shape this story and Batman's no killing rule. And he, in this vein, he briefly says, let's see here, I think I'll start here. So let's see. But most crucially and most unforgivably, the film stripped from Bruce Wayne, from Batman, the most critical foundation of his character. In the movie... Oh, okay. Let's see here. In the movies, Batman kills. In today's comics, Batman doesn't. That makes the comic version a hero, and it makes the film version a murderer. And a murderer isn't a hero by any stretch of the imagination. What then happens when the Batman becomes a killer? When the Dark Knight is beaten, broken, and falters? What happens when reinvention is again required and everything must change? Knightfall. Sorry if I was trying to find a good place to kind of go for that, but that's the part that caught my eye. And it says that this part of the introduction was written in November 2003. So that's before Batman Begins, but after the Tim Burton movies. And he is very right, and I found that interesting. And he's clearly talking about how he felt about those movies, kind of in retrospect, but also in a earlier retrospect when they were working on Knightfall, because that is basically what this story kind of is, answering what if Batman like is a murderer, and that's kind of what Jean-Paul Valley becomes as Batman. Sort of spoilers, sorry. And I like that. I like that. That guy gets Batman, and Dennis O'Neil gets Batman to a degree. But it's also interesting now that, after that interview, Batman Begins came out, and Batman sort of doesn't kill him, but he does let Ra's al Ghul die on the train. But then you skip forward to Batman v Superman, where he totally fucking kills people. So, though I don't know if Greg Rucka is still around, so I don't know if he lived to see that. But hope he's doing okay. If he still is, I don't want to jinx anything. Point being, there's also the Batman with Robert Pattinson, where he actually does have a no-kill rule, which it feels like it's taken so long for a live-action Batman movie to actually address that. Where The Dark Knight kind of does a little bit, to be fair. Like, he does mention, I have one rule, and he refuses to knock Joker over when he's going at him with his motorcycle, and Joker's like saying, hit me. There's that. But it just feels weird with the thing I mentioned with Batman Begins, where he's just cool with letting people die. Where in most cases Batman is usually trying to save as much people as he can. He's not always trying to make people suffer. But oh well. Tangent aside, I did enjoy this book. It was a little sluggish in the kind of middle to end section here, but oh well, it was fun either way. It was interesting getting like more into the heads of these characters. So yeah, check this out if you can. More likely you'll be able to check out the comics that this is based on, or you can find something, I'm sure. Who knows, maybe you have a copy of this or the kids version. That would be interesting to see what that's like. Or even the radio drama that was mentioned in the afterword as well. I would love to know what those are like. Aside from that, I guess let's give this a rating like I have been doing with all of the other books. I'm going to give Batman Knightfall, the novelization by Dennis O'Neil, a 9 out of 10. I think, again, I haven't fully read the actual comics, so I think it's either going to be on par or maybe slightly better, just because it adds more detail. But who knows? Eventually I'll get to reading Knightfall, the comic, the full story arc, because I only have one part of it up on my shelf. Other than that, that's it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure that you like the video if you did actually like it. Maybe check out some of my other videos. Comment what your thoughts on all of this stuff is. If you've seen some of the other versions of Knightfall that I mentioned, subscribe to the channel if you like it enough, or just want to support it a little bit. And I'll see you guys next time. So take care.